Okay, my first homebrewing experience. That babbling in the background is my daughter Evangeline. So, again, I was making a Belgian Golden Strong because I happen to like Belgian Golden Strongs. Again, not recommended for beginners. Probably want to start with something lighter, a lager maybe. And again, though, I was using a kit, and that is recommended for beginners. It's easier than doing all grain. The kit is kind of like using some ingredients, like they're ingredients that are already like put together partially, so to speak. So the kit that we got was actually for 2.5 gallons, and I wanted to create a 5-gallon batch, so we bought 2 kits. And if you read the instructions on these kits, you'll see that is exactly the thing to do. And that comes into play actually a bit later. Even though we did it correctly, it comes into play. So like a lot of beginning home brewers, I kind of got my brewing bearings by reading John Palmer's How to Brew. It's available online for free, which is amazing. Who does that? Everyone reads it. Why not charge for it? I probably shouldn't put that idea into John's head, though. Anyway, one thing John says is, hey, don't read those instructions on the kits. Okay, he's not that adamant about it, but he doesn't say don't read them, I don't think, but he says don't pay a lot of attention to them, because a lot of times if you do, you're going to end up creating pond water. I didn't want to create pond water, so I admittedly did not read the instructions on the kit. Okay. So my sister was over, my husband was at work, and it was awesome having my sister there to help me brew because she could help watch my daughter. I do not recommend that anyone do home brewing with a toddler running around. There's so much dangerous equipment. And also, I hate to say it, but as a woman, it was really difficult for me to carry around kettles, 5-gallon kettles of hot water by myself. So yeah, she was really helpful, and it made it a lot more fun. So we got everything going. Everything was going really well. We tested our yeast to make sure that it was nice and healthy, and it appeared to be. And we brewed the stuff, and we put it in the fermenter and put the airlock on. And within less than 2 hours, the airlock was bubbling like crazy. That is unusually fast for an airlock to bubble. It's an obvious sign of fermentation, so I was super, super excited. However, that quickly turned to sadness because maybe less than 72 hours, definitely. I mean, maybe even less than 48 hours later, the airlock stopped bubbling. Not always a bad sign because it could just mean something's wrong with the airlock. But when I took a hydrometer reading, I definitely saw that my gravity, I took several hydrometer readings over the next few days to check and see if fermentation was still happening, and it wasn't. So a hydrometer measures the gravity of a liquid, and for when you're brewing beer or any alcohol, the yeast, when it eats the sugar, it creates alcohol and thereby reduces the gravity. And so you're going to look for a drop in gravity to make sure fermentation is happening. So my yeast had stopped fermenting, and I was really sad. My hydrometer reading was at 1.020, and that was a lot higher than I wanted to be. I thought, what can I do? I don't know. I thought, okay, let me pitch more yeast. Let me try that. So while I was at work, my husband was nice enough to go back to the brew shop and try and find some yeast for me. Well, he spoke to the brew shop employee there, and the brew shop employee knew that I was making a 5-gallon batch. What he didn't know was I already was using 2 of these cans. Now, he read the instructions, and he looked on the instructions, and he informed my husband that if I wanted to be doing 5 gallons, I had to use twice as much additional malt extract or 2 pounds of sugar. I actually got on the phone with the guy, and I didn't realize that he didn't know that I already had 2 cans. So he's telling me, okay, you have to add even more malt extract. I was saying, that's ridiculous. Why would they not sell it with more malt extract? Why, if I had to use more, why would I have to buy stuff that's not already in this kit? That's the whole point of the kit. It's supposed to come with almost everything. And he kept saying, no, no, no. I got on the phone with my husband again, and I said, hey, I don't think this guy knows what he's doing. And my husband said, no, I see the instructions too. It says that. So I said, fine. My husband picked up regular powdered malt extract, and I added it to the beer. So the beer started fermenting again, but then it again only got back down to 1.020. That does not mean that there was no fermentation, because when you add the additional extract, obviously you're going to have higher gravity. But the yeast ate, and only ate to that 1.020 level. So at this point, I figured, and I think this is probably the best end conclusion, that my yeast just wasn't quite up to par. And I didn't know what to do, but there were a lot of sources online that said at this point it's not fermenting anymore, so go ahead and bottle. And all this did not happen in this rapid of a time period. I didn't just like get the stuff, put it in, and then like the next day start bottling. But I'm trying to summarize. So I bottled the beer, and after a little bit of bottle conditioning, maybe like 2 days, I noticed that a couple of the bottles had what looked like a bacteria infection. And I was just like, oh crap. They had like this, it was gross. It looked like a little like pale slug kind of on the top of the bottle. I opened the couple of bottles up, and sure enough, they were gushers, which means that they did have a bacterial infection, which was obvious by foam, just like a science project volcano gushing out of the bottle. And I have to go check on my baby. Be back. Okay, I'm back. Baby's napping. So while those 2 bottles had the slimy slugs and the gushers, everything else looked okay. But I wanted to be sure, so I wanted to make sure that the others weren't gushers. I opened a couple bottles up that looked fine, and there was no volcano, but there was, when I poured the beer, a lot of carbonation, and just too much carbonation to have occurred within just a few days of bottle conditioning. And I learned that what was happening was I had so many fermentables in there with that extra malt and everything, that the beer, which was continuing to ferment inside the bottles, was just fermenting at a really, really rapid pace. And I was going to eventually have what they call bottle bombs, which means that it just carbonates and carbonates until the bottle explodes. And I don't mean the top popping off. I mean like it just like glass shatters everywhere. And after talking to people and doing some research and figuring that I had too many fermentables, I also found the instructions online for that kit and kind of pieced together what had happened. So this time I'm telling myself, okay, you should read the instructions, so at least when you, your husband, or somebody is talking to a brew shop employee and you don't agree with that person, you have a little bit more background knowledge. We were going out of town, so I was really, really afraid of bottle bombs, so I decided that I didn't want a ton of bottles. I wanted to see if they would survive, but I couldn't risk keeping like 48 bottles in my house. So I sadly dumped a lot of the bottles, and I kept about 10 of them, which I put in a cooler and put in a storage space that didn't have anything breakable around it. And in between all of the bottles in the cooler, I put rolled up old towels, and I just try to like insulate everything and make sure that if these things did explode, that they wouldn't explode into each other and create a domino effect or do any massive damage, because this stuff can create massive damage. When we got back from our trip, there were no bottle bombs, and I was really happy and excited. And I poured a couple of bottles, tasted it, and it was pretty close to the good stuff that I now have. The not great stuff, but the good stuff. You know, again, there's a lot of fermentables in there. It didn't ferment all the way. So yeah, there were some problems, but it was still drinkable. And did some more bottle conditioning. I still have some that are conditioning right now. It's been, oh gosh, I mean, it's been at least a month now. So, you know, we'll see how the rest of it turns out. But, yeah, that's the story. So live and learn. And it, you know, all things considered, everything was a pretty good experience, and I can't wait to brew something again, something a little lighter maybe, do some better sanitizing, and there was some other stuff that I learned too, and just the process will be easier next time because I've done it.